Okay, we're going to learn how to solve trigonomic equations. So again, this is brought to you by Rhino Productions. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. Learn how to solve 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0. Whoa, Coach Stoney, we're going to actually have to solve equations now using trig functions? That is correct, sir. All right. So first off, let's think of this here. It is an equation, but how would I solve this problem? How would I solve 2m minus 1 equals 0? Well, wouldn't you add 1 to each side? Right? And then you would what? Divide by 2? So that you would get an answer of 1/2? Well, think about it. This is exactly the same thing, but instead of having the variable m, we have what? Sine x. So, first thing I want to do is what? Add 1 to each side. Okay, that makes sense. And then, notice like right here, I then divided by 2. I'm going to divide by 2 here. So sine x equals 1/2. Now, wait a minute. That's just what we were working on. That's like the arc sine of 1/2, or 0.5. And if you think of Sheldon Cooper, exactly 1/2. We know that that's at 30 degrees. Or, in radians, it would be what? Pi over 6. Okay? And let's look at our graph here. And we know that pi over 6 happens right there. But notice, if you look at the sine graph, it's going to be at 1/2 at more than one place. See those little black dots there? So, whoa, I mean, Coach Stoney, isn't pi over 6 the answer? Well, yes, pi over 6 is the answer, but we're not finished. Because, remember, a cycle repeats every 2 periods. So, and it happens twice in that period. So it also happens again at 5 pi over 6. That sine equals 1/2 at pi over 6 and at 5 pi over 6. Okay? You could look at your unit circle and see where the y value is 1/2 if you want to help out. So we know we have these 2 answers. Now, well, wait a minute though. Notice that's a period there. That's a period of what? 2 pi. It repeats again every what? 2 pi. So technically my answer is pi over 6 plus or minus 2 pi, because I could add 2 pi or what? Subtract 2 pi. And I could do the same thing to the what? 5 pi over 6, right? So I have this answer right here, pi over 6, and 5 pi over 6 plus minus 2 pi. But wait a minute. Won't it repeat even more than just one time? Won't it keep going technically forever? Yes. But it's going to repeat every what? 2 pi. So we're going to add an n. Notice that little green thing there? Made the n green. So you find your first answer, pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6, and we know it repeats every 2 pi, and we're going to stick an n between it because the n would determine the number of terms that you could have, and you could have an infinite number of terms. So in other words, to solve 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0, technically there's an infinite number of answers, but the answers appear every 2 pi when it's pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. The key is to get these 2 answers here. Then you're going to have to write plus or minus 2n pi. One of those things you have to do because there's also an infinite number of answers out there.